ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਡਿਲੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਡਿਲੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਡਿਲੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ Hey, thanks for joining. I actually joined a little early to ensure that everything is working fine. Let's give another 6-7 minutes for other of our colleagues to join. Thank you so much for being patient. And if you can put in the comments which city you are dialing in from. Wow, we have someone joining from Amsterdam. Thank you so much for joining. What's the time over there right now? I'm just curious. Wow, we have someone joining from Amsterdam. Thank you. Okay, so it's 14:24. Oh, that's nice. It's actually 9:24 a.m. Eastern Daytime here, and I believe it's going to be roughly around 6:54 in India evening time. Okay, so we have people from across the globe. So we'll begin our session in 5 minutes, giving other members from our community ample time to join. And while we are waiting for them, can you please put in the chat if you're able to hear me right and you're able to see the PPT that I'm presenting? Please put that in the chat. Yep, thanks for confirming. Okay, we are still 5 minutes out from our scheduled time. In the meantime, if you want to share any of your questions, any doubts that you want me to clarify on this call, please feel free to use our chat to ask your questions. And if you have not subscribed to our channel yet, feel free to do that. Let's build a stronger community together. For our next session, I should actually put on a music as well while we while we are waiting for other of our friends to join. What music do you like? Again, you can use the chat feature to comment your genre of music preference. Right now, we have 7 members who are watching this live stream. We are actually waiting for another 3 minutes to ensure that we are starting at the defined hour, ensuring that nobody misses out on this live session. And based upon your feedback, if you appreciate having these live sessions, we can have this on regular basis. I know I'm doing this almost after 8 or 9 months. Last time we did this session was back in May 2025. So again, based upon your feedback, your appreciation for these live sessions, we can do this more frequently. Okay, 1 more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, we are at time. I appreciate you for waiting for at least 5-6 minutes. As you know, this is our second live session, so I was ensuring that everything is working fine. If you have joined recently, please put your city from where you are joining in the comment section. Now, the agenda for today's session is very clear. I will be walking you through how you can break into the accessibility field, whether you are starting as a fresher or you're transitioning from a manual tester and into the accessibility. I will also walk you through how you can grow your accessibility career. In case you're feeling stuck at a certain position, I will share some nuggets on how you can scale to the next level. Next, I will walk you through what are the 5 steps that can get you hired in 2026. And finally, we will end this live stream with your questions. I will be addressing all the questions that you have pre-submitted or any questions that you have for me that you put in the chat today. With that, let's go on to breaking into the accessibility. At number 1 is all about freshers, because most of our members on YouTube and on Instagram, they have a question like, I have no background in accessibility, or rather, I have no background in the manual testing as well. So how I, as a fresher, can enter into the accessibility domain? The very first thing that you have to begin with is the right foundation. It's like you're learning the English language or any other language. You need to know the right grammar, how different letters sound. Similarly, if you have to enter the web accessibility testing, you must know what are the HTML semantics. What are the different tags that can be used from the HTML side? How the document object model works. So when an HTML renders in your browser, how is DOM getting generated? How assistive technologies actually read that DOM? Because some of you might not be aware of the accessibility tree. Accessibility tree is actually used to read from the DOM. So your assistive technologies like screen readers, they don't directly read from DOM. They read from something called as accessibility tree. That's why it is important to know what and how a document object model works. Then you must have the basic understanding of CSS, how different styling is applicable, what CSS properties can cause issues for accessibility. You should also have a good understanding of ARIA. Now, for people who don't know what ARIA is, ARIA actually stands for Accessible Rich Internet Applications, which are used to enhance the accessibility of a static web application. So in case there are any dynamic changes happening, ARIA is actually used to announce those changes to a screen reader user. That's the importance of ARIA. And finally, you must be aware of the accessibility basics. What are the different types of disabilities? What type of assistive technologies can be used by certain set of people with disabilities? What are the laws governing accessibility? What are the different standards that one need to adhere to? Before we continue, put it in the chat. Are you a fresher looking for a job opportunity in accessibility, or you are someone with experience? Put that in the chat. At number 2, once we are done with starting with the right foundation, you need to learn about WCAG. WCAG, or Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, are the standards that one needs to adhere to call their websites fully compliant. Now, there are different levels at WCAG. The most recent one is WCAG 2.2. However, the Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security follows WCAG 2.1. And similarly, depending upon the law that you are looking at, the standards might vary. But if you want to future-proof yourself, always go with WCAG 2.2. Now, there are 4 principles upon which the entire WCAG has been built: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. These are the 4 principles that define the entire WCAG standards. And then there are success criteria within it. And success criteria are at level single A or at level AA. Now there is level AAA as well, but if you want to perform real world scenarios, you stick to single A and AA, because achieving level AAA is very challenging. And I'm not sure if all major organizations are using it. Most successful organizations are actually sticking to single A and AA. And that's where you should invest your time and effort. You should also understand what are the real world scenarios that gets failed for accessibility. Then you need to familiarize yourself with assistive technologies. You must know what are the various automated plugins that can be used to speed up your accessibility testing. Now, there are n number of plugins in the market, and I will let you know what all are the 3 most used plugins that are used across organizations that are free of cost. You should also have a solid or a good understanding about how to test for keyboard only, and with screen readers. Now, why keyboard only? Because there are people who are only dependent upon keyboard, maybe because of loss of limbs or very less movement in their hands. Screen readers, because people who are dependent, who have no vision, are actually dependent on screen readers only. And then zoom softwares. People with low vision actually zoom into the application and then read through the content. So you should be very familiar with all assistive technologies. Next, we have to master accessibility testing. Now, when I say master accessibility testing, I meant is the following the right accessibility approach. I have seen excellent testers who actually fail to perform the right steps and end up losing a lot of accessibility bugs or pushing a lot of accessibility bugs into the production. So following the right accessibility technique is critical here. Then you make use of the right tools. As I said, the free tools that I always recommend are the XDev tools and Andy. Never ever depend upon one tool, because free tools have certain limitations. That's where, in case you're using just the free tools, use a combination of XDev tools and Andy. XDev tools actually serve as a litmus test for me. Anytime I'm testing a new application or a new page, I always start with XDev tools. In case it's a very simple application like a sign up or a sign up forum, which has only 4 or 5 fields with a couple of buttons, and if that page is having more than 5 accessibility issues, I will mark it as failure without even further investigating. Why? Because if XDevTools is able to find 5 issues, confirmed 5 issues, that gives me an impression that the development was never done with accessibility in mind. So you reach out to your developers, understand what's going on, and then only proceed when there are 0 accessibility errors or less than 2 or 3. Then you move on to Andy to understand the structure of the entire page. You go over different options that Andy provides. And once you are done with your XDev tools and Andy, you move on to your keyboard checks and then finally with the screen reader checks. And I don't stop only at keyboard and screen reader. I investigate into the code. I inspect every element or a complex element to understand if unnecessary aria has been used or not. If it has been used, then I will skip it. And lastly, become certified. Now, I'm keeping certifications at the end. Why? Because practical knowledge is much more important rather than going for certifications at the front. And the right order to become certified is to begin with CPAC. CPAC is offered by IAP. CPAC gives you the foundations, the right understanding what are the different disabilities, assistive technologies, laws, standards, different models that they have, and how you can implement those learnings when you're working with a large organization. DHS certification is actually used to test on how to test for accessibility. And then finally you go for WS, Web Accessibility Specialist. And you require minimum of 3 years of experience to go for that certification. Now let's move on. The next one is when you're transitioning from a manual tester to an accessibility tester. In that case, the basic understanding is that you are aware of all the formalities that go into the testing domain, and you have a good, or a, I would say, minimal understanding of HTML and basic understanding of WCAG. And that's where you start learning about the testing techniques on how you test for WCAG. Rather than cramming all the success criteria numbers, you focus on how do you check the heading structures. How do you verify that the form labels are accurate and linked with the input fields? So that's where you have to invest time mastering WCAG testing techniques. Secondly, you have to deep dive into ARIA. You must know what are the common issues when it comes to ARIA. When you should use ARIA and what is its impact. I have seen a lot of developers when they first learn about ARIA, they simply start using ARIA instead of HTML. They add ARIA label to every div, every label, every input field. That's where you having the right understanding of ARIA will actually help you find more accessibility bugs. Then you go for mastering the manual testing. You must be aware of all the keyboard combinations. What are the common keyboard combinations used by real people with disabilities? Join different forums where people with disabilities who are dependent upon keyboard and screen reader discuss about this every single day. You should be aware of the nuances between JAWS versus NVDA versus VoiceOver, how all three screen readers behave on different platforms. What are their shortcomings? To give you an example, JAWS, when you press H keyboard key for headings, it will read the heading first, followed by the heading level. So, taking example of this slide, it will announce as transitioning from manual tester to accessibility tester, heading level 1. But in case of VoiceOver, it's the complete opposite. It will say heading level 1, transitioning from manual tester to accessibility tester. So you must be aware of those subtle differences. And then you should also work on using the Zoom software. You should test at least at 200% for a desktop view and at 400% for a screen reader view. Next, we have you must offer solutions. What I meant by this is rather than just finding the violations in the system, you must provide mechanisms to how to fix those violations and what is the potential impact in terms of whether it is a blocker for the end user or it's just a minor bug that can be fixed later. So your role should grow with once you have more experience testing for accessibility. And lastly, become a change maker. Your level of understanding for accessibility will impact how decisions are being taken at large organizations. If you are able and accurately communicate and articulate your understanding of accessibility and best user experience, you can shape how decisions or how the user experience is being created at your organization. At this moment, I would like you to comment whether you are transitioning from manual tester to an accessibility tester or you are starting fresh into the accessibility field. Please use the chat feature to put your comments. Next, let's talk about how you can grow into the accessibility field or career. So, if you are someone who has been into the accessibility field for last, let's say, 2 or 3 years, and you're not seeing any growth, here are the 5 ways I would suggest that you can use to grow your career within accessibility. At number 1, transition again, the point that we discussed in our previous slide. Move from fixing bugs to preventing them. You should have a very sound understanding by simply looking at the page whether this issue could have been avoided from the beginning or this is something that was introduced as a regression. You should work with the team to build component libraries. You should define different design standards and put in different practices, ensuring that you're catching bugs early in the SDLC. Next, you have to bake accessibility into the software development lifecycle. You must know how accessibility can be consumed during the planning phase, the design phase, the development phase, and the testing phase. Because every step matters, and more you move to the left side, it's much easier and less expensive to build accessible solutions. And you might have heard me say this multiple times. Designers are the true enablers of accessibility, and they are dependent upon your wisdom to help them, guide them. What is an inclusive solution versus an exclusive? What are the differences that you can offer on what when I say differences between the inclusive and exclusive solutions? Next, you help curate policies. If you want to grow into an organization, you must be able to communicate what are the right accessibility standards for your organization. You should look online, join forums where they discuss about accessibility standards. Look into the laws, what WCAG standards are they following. You must be able to set up governance policies. What are the guardrails that you have put in the system? And how have you defined ownership? If you have a developer, what is his responsibility? For designers, what is their role and what are their deliverables? That must be very accurately put in your policies. Because if policies are not well defined, there is ambiguity. And when there is ambiguity, there is a high chance of putting out exclusive or non-compliant solutions. Then you build systems and guardrails. In case there are multiple products, multiple websites within your organization, and if you have multiple different teams working on those products, chances are the look and feel will be completely different. And when look and feel can be different, your accessibility can also vary. To compensate for that, the solution is to have design systems, wherein it's a collection of components, which is your brand and WCAG compliant. And then other teams are using the same set of components, ensuring that the look and feel and accessibility stays consistent throughout different set of websites. You standardize what are the different testing tools will be used by your designers, developers, and testers. So when you are testing, you're comparing apples to apples. And then you finally end up tracking progress. Because every time you perform accessibility check, every time you perform accessibility audits, you must track whether the score is improving, your number of bugs or violations are reducing with every iteration or not. What is the trend? Are you seeing the same issues again and again or not? So that's how you build systems and guardrails. Lastly, you focus on the end user experience. Working with WCAG or accessibility, I've seen testers confuse whether WCAG is the only end goal. WCAG for me is the starting point, because then you have to work on the usability aspect of the things as well. You can have 100% conformance for WCAG and still fail the usability studies. That's where you should also focus on performing usability studies with real people with disabilities. Understand what is the cognitive load that they are getting simply looking at your application. How do they interact? Are the things simple for them or not? And the most critical one is to go through the real user journeys. So to simplify what a real user journey might look like, let's take an example of an Amazon. You open up an Amazon website, you search for a product, you select a product, you do checkout. That's a real user journey. So what is the real user journey for your application? Perform that testing with a real person with disability. That's how you will understand that, okay, WCAG, we are 100% conformant. Are we really is the application really working with real people with disabilities? That's where usability studies come into the picture. Comment if you have ever done a usability study in your career. The next one is how to scale accessibility. Now, I know I have done a video on this already. I presented this session for BrowserStack in New York a couple of weeks ago, wherein there were industry leaders talking about how they are performing testing at large organizations. So I would highly advise you to go and check that video. Then, what are the 5 steps to get hired in 2026? I believe most of our viewers are either freshers who are trying to get into the accessibility domain, or there are women who took break because of the family situations. And I truly get that. It's challenging. The market is very challenging right now, but here are the 5 steps. If I was looking into a job switch as a fresher, this is what I would do. In case you are having certifications, I will use that and convert into a proof of concept of proof of work. I would use that certification to build case studies. What were the real issues that you identified in your audit? How those issues were impacting the end users, and what were the recommendations that you proposed? That will actually help you convert your understanding of certification into the practical implementations. If you might have seen my video, or the video that is planned for a couple of weeks from now, is how your practical knowledge is bigger than having a certification. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying certifications are not important, but having a practical knowledge is much more important rather than having a certification. So convert your certification into proof of work. Secondly, the biggest challenge or the questions that I receive from my students are, Param, I don't have experience, and companies are asking for 3 years of experience, couple of years of experience. How do I build experience? In that case, I always advise them to test real websites and document everything that you do. So, for example, you have audited a website. Put in the website name, how many pages you audited, what were the different pages you audited for it, what were the automated and manual checks you performed, how many issues or violations you identified, what were the recommendations that you would have for those. That's how I suggest students to build experience. On top of this, I would suggest going for freelancing. Now, there are websites like Fiverr, WeWork, right? That's where you can pick up work for small organizations. They only give you 3 or 4 or 5 pages at the max to test for. That could be your building experience battleground. Because the moment you land up for an interview, they're going to ask you real questions. They're not going to ask you theoretical things. Nobody's going to ask you what is the success criteria number for alternate text for images. Nobody's going to ask that. They're going to ask you real questions. And to answer those questions, you have experience testing real websites. Next is to rewrite your resume. Don't use the same resume for every single job. You have to modify your resume as per the requirements for what that job is looking for. And while doing that, you have to showcase your impact and your influence of work. Because the recruiter is looking what was the impact of your contribution to the project. Nobody is looking for, okay, this person is having understanding of WCAG 2.2. That's given. If you're applying for accessibility job, you must have that knowledge. But what was the impact? How many users you were able to influence with your change? So That's something should be part of your resume. Practice. Now, I've seen a lot of students who first appear for job interviews. They are not sure on how to address those questions. So there's a certain pattern that I would suggest in case they are giving you a real life scenario on how you performed or how you got to know about accessibility issues that nobody else was able to. You follow this pattern, which is discovery. You looked into the issues, you used automated plugins, you used your manual testing checklist, then you identified the risk. Is it severely impacting the end user? Based upon that, you prioritized that bug, and then you collaborated with the design and the dev team in case designers were needed in that bug remediation, and then you finally validated it. So this is how your journey should look like when you are first creating a bug to resolving a bug. When I say resolving, validating once the fix has been in place. And finally, you apply for jobs. Now, I have kept LinkedIn at the end because LinkedIn is saturated. I have seen a lot of ghost jobs being posted on LinkedIn. My advice would be to begin your job search with accessibilityjobs.com. That's where I see a lot of accessibility jobs being posted every single day. Secondly, I would recommend going for the IAP Career Center. They also provide job opportunities and links to the various job openings. LinkedIn, if it works, I would say it's purely luck. I have no trust in LinkedIn anymore. But yeah, if you still believe LinkedIn can get you jobs, please feel free to do that. And in case you want to join our WhatsApp channel where I share job openings from my network, feel free to join the WhatsApp channel. With that, let's move on to the live Q&A. And before I get to that, there is one comment from Pavan. He's saying deadline pressure is a major stressor which can lead to quality compromise or decrease. I completely agree with that, Pavan. The biggest challenge that I have seen is people consider accessibility as the last step. Or worse, they don't even care about accessibility. And that's where we need to ensure that we are being plugged in at the right time. We are part of the SDLC. We are testing for accessibility during the iterations, during the sprints when the development is being done. That's how we can ensure that accessibility is not tested under any pressure or any stress environments. That's where you will be able to deliver quality rather than simply doing minor checks or missing out on major functionality checks. Thank you. Thank you for putting that in the comments. Okay, with that, Lou, let's move on to our live Q&A session. And there were quite interesting questions being pre-submitted. For privacy reasons, I'm not gonna write, I have not written the full names of the users who asked this question, but one of our viewers, MD, I'm gonna give it a short name, MD, asked, is it possible to earn a crore level salary package as an accessibility consultant or not? The short answer is yes and no. You do not start with a crore level salary package at the basic accessibility consultant level. You grow your career in accessibility. You start as an accessibility tester, you convert and grow into that field. And once you reach a director level, a chief accessibility consultant, or chief accessibility officer level, that's where you can expect that level of salary. And again, it all depends what is the value add that you are bringing to the table. Are you simply testing for accessibility, or are you shaping how the industry is being looked upon? Are you part of the change or not? If you are part of the change, you are able to get more clients for your company. You're getting or generating more revenue for them. Of course, you can yeah, demand for a crore level salary, but unless you do that, the realistic range is very different. I have seen freshers, mostly from India, who are joining between the range of 4 to 5 lakhs per annum. And as they grow, I have a very dear friend of mine who has 5 years of accessibility testing experience, who is earning more than 15 lakhs per annum just for testing. So, as I said, it all depends upon the value add that you are bringing to the company. That defines your salary package. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Then we have Satya. She asked, apart from WCAG guidelines, are there any additional accessibility checklists specific to Section 508, EN 301, 549, or ADA? Yes. So, Section 508 and ADA, these couple of laws are actually looking at WCAG only. So in case your application is WCAG 2.1 single A and double A compliant, you should be good. But for the European Accessibility Act, which refers to EN 301 549, there are certain additional checks that you should be aware of. So these two are different. So only for EN 301 549, yes, there are additional checks which you can find on their official website. Please comment if this addresses your concern. And in case there are any follow-up questions, please use the chat feature to ask those. The next question is, how can we run automated accessibility scans for pages that require login or authentication? What is the common approach used in real projects? So the authenticated flows depends upon what software or what technology stack you are using. Most of the time, it's mostly Selenium-based scripts that are being used. That's where you have to provide the right credentials to ensure that you're going beyond the sign-in pages, which requires authentication. So yes, it is technically feasible. There are Selenium scripts that you have to use in the right way to test for the authenticated flows. Automated tools like AGS and Lighthouse detect only some accessibility issues. How can AI improve accessibility testing beyond these tools? I'm not a huge fan of Lighthouse because that gives a false sense of protection. Because if you run Lighthouse, it gives you 100 score. I have seen product owners going live with that false confidence. So I am not reliant or 100% sure when I use Lighthouse. Yes, X DevTools is a good and a powerful tool, but again, depending only on one tool is not good enough. Now, how AI can improve accessibility testing beyond these tools? I have evaluated a couple of large vendors for AI. They have AI capabilities for every phase. For designers, they have tools, AI-powered tools that can scan your design, look for the accessibility issues, and generate something called as accessibility report. It also has the capabilities to generate accessibility annotations. Now, what accessibility annotations are? Taking example of this screen that you're looking at, your Q&A should be H1 or H2. That's the level of clarity annotations provide. So Q&A should be H1. Then your list, this is a list, right? This should be using ULLI tags. That's the level of information a designer must provide to the developers. That is the capability AI-powered tools is able to create those annotations automatically for us. For developers, before I go to developers, for designers, if you upload that Figma file or the design file into their systems, they have AI-powered tools that can generate these test scripts, the manual test scripts that you can use to test for. So rather than writing test scripts manually, You simply upload a design and it will generate test scripts for you. That's how I see AI improving accessibility testing at every phase. And for developers, there are AI tools that are able to recognize the issues while they are writing the code. And once they're done with the writing of their code, AI-powered plugins, browser plugins are able to find more accessibility issues as compared to the standard Axe core. So that's how it is changing the industry. I believe there was a follow-up question on this. How can tester practically implement AI in their testing workflow? I believe I addressed as part of the previous question, wherein if you are using those AI-powered solutions, you can skip your manual way of doing or the repetitive manuals way of creating test scripts. From using AI, you simply upload that Figma file and it will generate test cases for you. You can automate AI. You can use those plugins to scan or crawl different pages in the application. That has the capabilities of self-healing in case you change the developer change their UI, they change the CSS copy path, right? AI capabilities have the self-healing capabilities wherein it is able to recognize the change and then trigger the linked functionality. So that's how it is changing the testing workflow. And not to mention the AI-powered browser plugins that we have nowadays. The next question is, before I go there, I see there are a couple of comments from Pawan. I know recently a team testing accessibility, in that few of them don't know how to navigate with screen reader. They are sighted people. Yeah, so that's the challenge. People think accessibility testing can be performed by anyone. However, accessibility testing is a niche. You need to have right understanding of how to test for accessibility. What's the right keyboard combination with a screen reader on? How do you jump from one heading to another? How you jump from one link, button, or a list item? So it's a very niche. I always say a manual tester requires a learning curve to become an accessibility tester, right? However, an accessibility tester can perform the manual checks because they are working only on the functionality. But to test for accessibility, you must know how WCAG works, how assistive technologies work. The other follow-up comment from Pavan is, can VI testers become user experience designers? I'm not sure what it meant, Pavan, if you can clarify. Bhai, in the future, will AI replace real manual testers? The short answer to that question is no, as long as you're also upskilling yourself. What I meant by that, Pavan, is if you are learning how AI works, how you can leverage AI to remove your repetitive work, like just I mentioned, of generating test scripts. If you are still doing that manually, that's a red flag. You should be using AI capabilities. You should be able to upload the PRD document, the requirement document, and then use AI to generate test cases for you. And your effort should be only focused on testing the real accessibility, real screen reader workflows, real use cases, performing usability testing. That's where manual testers who are leveraging AI will be able to survive in the future. But if your only task is to create test scripts and use the automated plugins, then yes, again, that's a red flag. And I would recommend to use AI to your benefit and then continue to upskill your understanding of accessibility. That's how you can future-proof your career. Again, thanks for asking these thought-provoking questions, Pawan. The next question that was pre-submitted was, nowadays many companies expect accessibility automation. For accessibility testers, is basic knowledge of tools like Selenium or Playwright enough, or do we need full automation framework knowledge? Satya, with the advancements in AI, I have seen a shift in the trend wherein a one person is expected to do everything. Now, if you have a basic understanding of Selenium or Playwright, I believe that is good enough. And on top of it, you can use AI to create those automation test scripts, right? So as long as you have the basic understanding and a solid foundation in accessibility, you can use and leverage AI to automate things as well. Gone are the days where we can't say, just a manual tester, I will not be able to do automation because I need to learn. Those days are gone. Now you can't, there's no excuse. If your team lead asking you to automate and giving you the access to AI, the chances are that you will end up doing the automation, because that's the expectation. That's the harsh reality of today's world. And all thanks to the advancements in AI. The next question is, in the early phase, when only requirements or designs are available and development hasn't started yet, how can testers perform accessibility testing? Excellent question, by the way, Satya. That's where we that's where we do the design reviews. We review at the designs created by designers. We perform different sanity checks. If there are color contrast issues, touch target issues, if there are issues related to drag and drop, which are not dependent upon keyboard only, those are the things that we highlight with your knowledge, your understanding of accessibility. That's where I said having a sound understanding of WCAG success criteria along with the best usability practices will make sure that you are relevant across different SDLC phases. So you use that knowledge to review designs for accessibility, and that's where you catch majority of the accessibility issues. The next question we have is from Shiva. I would like to learn accessibility testing as a QA functional tester to enhance my profile and expand my testing expertise. What are the skills should I focus on next? I believe, Shiva, this session, if you attended the entire session, should have given you the clarity on how you can transition from a manual tester into an accessibility tester. In case there are any follow-up questions and I didn't answer your question in certain form, please put it in the chat. I'm more than happy to clarify. The next one is from Ramu. How we confirm whether the application is accessibility compliant or not without using any automation tools? Ramu, I would say automation tools are the starting point. And unless you have an eye for accessibility testing and years of experience testing for it, there is no other way that you can skip using the automation tools, because that actually helps you identify the low-hanging issues, which are definitely identified by automation plugins. So I would say not to skip automation tools. Always begin with automation and then move on to your manual checks. And the last one is from Simran. What's the scope of accessibility in the future? I believe that's what, Pawan, your question was also, whether AI is going to replace real manual testers. See, if you are a fresher starting into the field or looking for a change and want to switch careers, I would highly recommend going for AI. Learn how AI works, how large language model works, how you create agentic AI. That's where I would recommend for a fresher who is starting out fresh and looking where they should invest their time, money, and energy. But the other side of the coin is, if we are using AI to build code, right? I was doing an exercise yesterday where I used the same prompt within my Visual Studio Code with GitHub Copilot and Claude. Same prompt. I used it for 3 or 4 times, and every single time it gave me 4 different results. All 4 varied in terms of the accessibility compliance, in terms of the look and feel and user experience. So the code that is being generated today using AI is not fully accessible. The more AI we are using, the more accessibility issues or bugs we are injecting. The more accessibility bugs we are injecting, more accessibility testing is needed. Now, that is going to be a combination of using AI powered plugins and manual checks. That's where, Simran, if you have a solid understanding of WCAG, sound understanding of how assistive technologies work, what are the real use cases that you have to test for, different keyboard combinations with screen readers, that will make you future proof, along with the use of AI, how you leverage AI to your advantage. What questions do you have for me? Because these were the only pre-submitted questions that I have. I'm checking my chat window. There's a question. Hello, sir. Happy to watch your program. Thanks. Thanks, Suresh. I appreciate your input on this. And I know you work for different organizations and you have friends and colleagues who are also into the accessibility domain. If you have not done it already, please feel free to share this channel with your colleagues so that they can also understand what needs to be done for inclusion. The only mission that we have is to build a digital and inclusive world moving forward. And in case you have not joined our membership yet, scan the QR code because it takes a lot of effort to curate all those videos that are meaningful, that actually adds, that provides value to you. And I would appreciate you joining our members. We have more than 14 members who are actually sponsoring all those videos for us. Okay, there's another question. What are some good resources to deep dive into ARIA? I would begin with the ARIA playlist that I have curated on this channel. Apart from that, I would go with I will let me look really quick for that. ARIA, I'm fading on the name. So go for MDN. It's from developers.mozilla organization. They have provided a very good documentation on ARIA. Apart from that, DQ has also created set of components purely based upon ARIA. Now, I would caution you, if you are using ARIA, the onus of making it fully accessible lies with you. So always go with HTML first. And in case the capabilities are not there in the regular HTML semantics, then go for ARIA. And that's where DQ will be able to help. Let me quickly put that couple of those links in the chat. One is from MDN. That's number 1. Second is DQ. ARIA components. Just give me a second. I'm looking for the exact link. Well, I'm not able to find that at this moment, but I'll definitely make sure that you have that. I will put it in the comments. Okay. The other thing that I'm gonna do right now is share the playlist that we have created on ARIA. Let me know if you are having any questions related to that. I'm gonna put that playlist in the chat. Okay. What other questions you have for web accessibility testing? Any impediments, any doubts that you want to clarify? Sure, happy to help. Yeah, do let me know in the comments once you're done watching that playlist in case you have any further questions or any clarifications that you need. Okay, I believe there are no more further questions. We can end this live stream. And in case you any sure. Uh, okay, there's a question from Suresh. When will be the next live session? We can definitely have another session. Please put it in the comment what frequency you would uh, like to have these live sessions, right? And what specific topics you would like me to cover, because the number of questions that I received were very limited, right? Having the clear agenda will certainly help plan those sessions. So use the comment section to put in the frequency and suggest topics that you want me to cover. And yeah, most importantly, what time works for you all? I know it's the time difference between India and US is causing a little bit of issue. So please let me know about the timing as well. And again, please join our monthly membership that helps me create more valuable content for you. Okay, I believe there are no further questions. We can end this live stream. Thank you so much for joining our second live session. I will definitely keep you in loop. And in case you are not aware of our WhatsApp channel where I share all these details, I'm gonna put that in the in the comment section. Please use that link to join our WhatsApp group so that you are informed about the upcoming events. I wish you all the best in your journey, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.